Tell you what, the conversations can wind up like that a lot if you don't know how to listen well. And I remember sitting in counseling classes in my seminary, and what a thrilling class. But it was interesting because the main focus of the class was how to listen. Over and over and over again, they would talk about, here's how you listen, here's how you show your listening, et cetera, et cetera. So I was pumped up. I was excited. I'm like, ooh, this is how you listen. You're supposed to bring about great relationships. So I went home, and I went straight to Teresa. We were newly married, and I was just like, this is the way we do it. And I started applying the principles of how to listen. And she's like, this is ridiculously horrible. She laughed in my face. It didn't work. Well, she didn't laugh in my face, but we definitely were like, this is not working. I would repeat back what she said to me, and she'd be like, don't do that. It was annoying to her. And we worked it out, and eventually we kept pursuing it, and we figured out how to not make it wooden, and it started to grow. It started to change the way that we actually engage in our conversation. And something that I love about my relationship with Teresa at this point is that we like to put it this way. It has just been one very long conversation. It just keeps going. And my kids were in last service, and my daughter's like, uh-huh. And it just doesn't stop because we don't let them in. It's just us talking all the time. But we've engaged now where, yes, they're involved. It's a constant conversation, a constant communication. And I feel like it's because of that we're able to manage and work through so many aspects of our life. My hope for you in this series, my dream for our church is that you would become people who are capable of listening and capable of understanding each other and having the kind of communication that whoever you're with, it becomes one long conversation. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it is your spouse, maybe it's your children, maybe it's a friend or a series of coworkers, but I long for us to be a people who can be able to listen well. And if you're just starting in this series, I've already covered a couple of these things. First of all, I want to welcome you. My name is Greg Harris, I'm the senior pastor here at Olive Branch, and we're in this series called Caution, Handle with Care. And what we're talking about is words, your communication with each other. The ability for you to converse back and forth is something you're given as a gift, but honestly, we can use it to destroy or we can use it to build. Our theme verse in the series has been this: let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. What we've been talking about is how do we be people who build with our words and not break? How do we use our words so that we're lifting one another up, challenging each other so we grow and become the full understanding of who God's made us to be with our words? And so building, not breaking. So we've been doing this. We've been looking at these cards, kind of handing them out to you guys. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we said, are you building? Are you breaking? Last week, we said, that depends on what mindset you're in. That there's a mindset of the flesh, which is a me versus you kind of mindset, centered on me, my desires, my wants, and man, it's going to be in attack mode if I'm in this zone because it's a conflict. And this side is the spiritual, which is in the spirit, we're seeking peace. It's us together. There's no enemies here. How do we work this out? How do we understand and communicate together? And so we asked ourselves, are we assuming or accusing? And if we are, we want to back out and enter into curiosity. We want to enter into an attempt to bring each other in together. How you do that is what we're going to address today. We're going to dive into this conversation about listening. Now, as a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever tried to put up shelves or something on your walls in your home? Anybody here? Anybody willing to admit they made the mistake of just putting it straight into the drywall? And the next thing you know, you put some weight on it and it just falls over, right? Because you didn't use one of these, right? You know what this is? It's a stud finder. And what's cool about stud finder is it uses a sonic ability that sends in a sonic sound wave, comes back, and it meets it so that you get this little knowledge that that's hollow and then that's not. And when you hit the solid thing, it goes off solid, and you're like, oh, there's a stud there. And you know to put the hole there, drill the thing so that what you carry doesn't break. And of course, if you're a dad, you've been dad long enough, you stand there with this thing and you go, oh, check that out, I found the stud, right? Anybody know? Yeah, thank you, Drew. I knew you were with me, man. And so it's like, hey, yeah, here's the thing. I want all of you to be studs. I don't mean this seriously. I want you to be a stud listening. I think if you are willing to work hard at finding the studs of your communication, if you're willing to dig in and find the spaces that you can hang your conversations on, they can bear the weight of whatever you go through. And if you will simply pull out the very power of the stud finder called listening, you guys, we're gonna see a transformation in the way we approach each other. So I want to challenge you to be a stud in your listening. How do we do that? Well, first, Foremost, listen. The scripture tells us, listen before you speak. Listen before you talk. Listen before you say something. Open your ears. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use this twice as much as use this, right? That's the old adage. Listen twice as much as you speak. But listen before you speak comes from the book of James. James, again, teaching us all kinds of good communication tools, all kinds of incredible conversational pieces. In chapter 1, verse 19, he puts it this way. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Now, I love this because how many of you guys have heard this verse before? You know, it's like, okay, no, slow, fast, right? Slow to speak, slow to anger, but I want to be quick to hear. And the reason that I love this is, notice what he says. If you'll do this, it does something else. If it's in like polar opposites, it's called inverse proportional. Imagine that I have this idea of anger on this side and listening on this side. If there's a lot of anger, there's not a lot of listening. And if there is a lot of listening, there's not going to be a lot of anger. That's kind of how he's putting it together. He's trying to show you that if you're willing to stop and listen, to hear before you speak and before you get triggered and angry, you're going to understand. You're going to grasp the need. You're going to be able to engage with that need, and it's going to be an us thing and not a me against you thing because you're willing to slow down and listen first. This is so important because right now you are in a listening crisis in our culture. If you are of any age, if you have grown up and your teenage years included anything like Facebook, or you could go back to, MySpace if you want to go back there, but anything that was a social media-like reality where you were able to pronounce and show off what you were up to, live journal, you name it. Like if you're into Instagram, you got it. You're about everybody, hear what I got to say. You want to show, speak, influence, and you want people to listen to you by liking you. You want people to listen to you by what? By them commenting. This is the weirdest thing in the world. How do I show that I'm listening to you? I get to say something now. Whoa. This is a disaster zone to learn how to communicate. Because if my way of listening to you is to say what I think, now we're in a problem. Be slow to speak. Be quick to listen. And if we think of it in those terms, we realize, oh man, how often am I speaking just to be liked? How often am I speaking just to get my words out? Not because I want to be heard, not because I want to listen. And so what I want to do is flip it. We really need some help kind of recovering this idea of listening so that we can be a people who communicate again and don't jump down each other's throats because we got a big listening deficit going on. And if it's invading your communication, your family, it's going to disintegrate things. Remember, we'll end up in the flesh, and the flesh brings death. There's a me, you, all fight, no unity, no peace. And so what we need to do first then is this. Let's listen by putting others first. Listening is the quality of putting somebody before me, that I'm putting you before myself. And so this is seen here in the book of Philippians chapter 2. Paul is writing to this church in Philippi. It's a military outpost. It's got a lot of conflict-oriented people in it, if it's a military outpost. They're very used to command structures, but there are 2 ladies in the church who have some pretty big stake in the church, and they can't get along anymore. Euodia and Syntyche are at each other's throats, and he has to call in Clement. He's trying to calm them down, but he's given all of this evidence on how we communicate before this division starts to tear the church apart. So he starts with, he says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his interests, but also to the interests of others. Now let's break this down a little bit. Notice the flesh versus the spiritual distinction. On the flesh, we're going to be selfish. It's about me. It's what I want. It's about conceitedness. Aren't you hearing what I have? It's a fight. It's me against you. It's all these bad assumptions. Are you assuming? Are you accusing? On this side, he's saying, no. We're going to be humble. Just because I've been married to Therese for 23 years doesn't mean I know her so well that I can assume everything about her. No, I need to be humble. There's still things I can learn. I need to be humble as I approach things, ready to open and consider you, if I'm communicating to you, more important, more significant than me. That's going to change the way that I speak. I'm going to listen to what you have to say before I feel like I have to say something. And so when we live this out, it goes into this. Let each of you not look at only to his own interests. Note, yes, look out for your own interests. That's okay. Biblically saying you still have that right. But don't do that only, but also the interests of others. What are we getting to here? We're getting to this idea that I'm willing to put you before me so I can understand you, so I can get to your interests. We call those your needs. It's the same thing what James already taught us last couple weeks. I want to get down to your needs. I want to see what your interests are. I want to meet you where you're at because I want to be heard and you to hear me. I want to know you and you want to know me. That's called communication. We all good on this? Now, that means that listening starts with considering others. What I want you to do is consider others by setting them up to hear you. If you're initiating the conversation, if you're the one who's going to start, how about give the person you're talking to the best chance to hear you can possibly give them? You ever think about that? Like, just don't launch into a conversation. Prep. Get it set up. Give them every opportunity you can, when you can, for a good, healthy conversation where they can hear you. How do you do that? By considering them before you go in. And let's consider a few things. First of all, remember back if you were with us the first week, we brought this term up. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. And the idea here is that if you speak the word rightly, it's this beautiful thing. Well, the apples of gold, setting of silver concept is that you get it. You see it. You see its beauty. You understand it. So what do we want to do? Well, number one, when you consider others, consider your words. Consider what words you're using, right? If you're going to engage with somebody, consider, I'm going to use these words, and I got to realize there are some words I shouldn't use. If you know somebody long enough, there are trigger words in people's vocabularies. You ever ran into a trigger word before? It will set the conversation off. It won't allow it to keep going. Everybody know what I'm talking about? In fact, as a pastor, one of the things I have to be careful of is not to use trigger terms, because my goal isn't to get you off in politics or off on other things. I want to focus your mind on what we're talking about. So some of preaching is the art of knowing what not to talk about and what to not bring up, because I don't want to send you thinking in a wrong direction. The same thing is true when you're in a communication. If you know that your mother-in-law doesn't like the word fine, don't use it. Last week I used that illustration. I got into my office and she had texted, "That was a fine message, Greg." It was awesome. She just totally owned me. But you want to consider your words, because some of you are using different dictionaries. And so when you are engaging and you're using a set of terms that don't make much sense to the other person, they don't get it. Like, don't talk with big words to your children who are in third grade. You ever realize that? Like, you need to bring your language down to their level so that they can hear you and understand you. Sometimes teenagers, your parents aren't trying to sound goofy. They're just trying to talk on your level with your words. Because that's what words change. And we gotta realize that words change, but at the same time, we gotta realize the definitions need to stay somewhat the same. Can we please? I'm a pastor, so I like philosophy. Words have definitions, and they can't just radically mean opposite things just because we decided they do. Now, I get it, that can work that way, but a word has a traditional way of being used and needs to stay that way as much as possible. Why? So we can communicate. If we continue this discourse of dissolving words and using them in opposite ways and changing the vocabulary, we are creating the inability to communicate to one another. There has to be a common language. And so, guess what? If you're receiving the communication, you have the right to be Inigo Montoya. You're like, what? You have the right to look at the person and say, you keep using that word. They don't think it means what you think it means, right? You have that right to say that. You have the right to go, what is that word you're using? I don't quite understand. You keep bringing it up, but you're not using it the way that I understand it. What word are you using? If you want communication, the word is needed when you consider the other. The second thing you need to consider is, honestly, your tone. Right? You need to consider the tone of voice that you're using, because your tone is huge. Some of you don't have tone. You got voice modulation syndrome. I get it. There's this concept that you don't have an up and you don't have a down, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You just need to know if that's you. Some of you have a monotone, and that means that when you're trying to express yourself, it's not coming out with an intensity in any up or down in your voice. It's coming out in intensity in your face or in some other manner. And so some of you need to be able to say, hey, look, this tone of voice I'm going to come to you with is like, I'm actually really excited. Thanks, because I didn't know that. And some of you will know somebody like this where it's like, that is their happy voice or that is their angry voice. And it's very similar. If that is somebody you know, if you're in that zone, here's what I'm asking you to do. If you know that's about yourself, lead with your emotion. Lead with what you actually are feeling so people know where you're at. You know you feel it, but they may not know that. This will really help your spouse out. This will really help your friends out, where they're like, dude, you're actually excited? Yes, I'm very excited. Thanks for telling me, man. That's not how I show excitement, but awesome. Now, some of you are very expressive. Tone it down a little bit, right? I'm just like, when I'm talking about, super expressive, realize that sometimes you're being more intense than you intend to be. And realize that sometimes you're carrying in things in your conversation you never intended to. You just got off the freeway. You had somebody cut you off, and you were trying to get home and it cut off a minute or whatever. You got that red light, and you're like ticked off, and you get in home, you come out, and you're just like, so how was your day? Fine. Now, you started the conversation, answered the conversation, you got intensity, but you don't mean it for them. You're like, oh, well, what's wrong with you, Mr. Grouchy Pants? Or say you enter into a conversation and something in your background is bothering you and you don't even realize it. You may come with more intensity than you intended. If you're receiving it, you have every right to go, hey, what's that tone? Like, you're giving me a tone of voice. Are you really angry at me right now? Oh, no, I'm not mad at you. Well, your tone's really intense. And you have to be able to ask that and address it so that you can hear each other. Otherwise, you're going to get caught off with a tone that doesn't belong in the conversation. So think about that. You can ask the question. You can engage in these ways. Now, this tone is incredibly important because it's going to help you not get lost in the direction. Second or third one is your body language. Body language. You got to love body language. And body language is critical in all communication. Because if you really want to engage somebody, it's really important that you do it right. Do you guys understand what I'm telling you? Because the way your body language is shows off how you're really feeling inside. It would be horrifying if I preached like this all the time, wouldn't it? Sitting here with my arms crossed, looking at you guys all like this. I wag my finger once in a while like a mean, angry pastor. Look, the reason body language is critical is it can communicate tone in a different way. And sometimes you need to be able to pause and say, and we've done this in my family so many times, hey, what was that face? I didn't do a face. Yes, you did. This is what it looked like. Why'd you do that? And then they admit, they stop and they go like, well, and they are able to tell us what's behind it. It sometimes has nothing to do with it. Like I think one time, like somebody said something and they got this face on my daughter. I'm like, what's that face? And she's like, oh, the dog jumped behind you. It had nothing to do with our conversation. But I misread her facial expression thinking she was disrespecting dad when she was laughing at the dog behind me. You see how important it is to ask these kind of questions, to dig into. And so watch your facial expression. If you really want to have a good conversation, husbands and wives, sit down on a couch next to each other. Put your hand on each other's lap or lean in, put an arm around each other, and start the conversation. It shows openness. It allows you an opportunity to connect. Now, it could be intense. You may end up backing off, but at first, you're trying your best to stay in an open position. If you're talking to your children, watch this. Get down into their face. Look them in the eye. Give them respect. Use words at their level. Check out how intimate this is just as a pastor. I'm sitting here talking to you guys right here. Because I've lowered myself down into roughly your eye level, it changes the very mode in which we're communicating. Your body language is critical. So when you're going to go in, set it up so they can hear you. With your facial expression, your body language, your tone of voice, the words you're going to choose, and finally, your timing. Oh my gosh, timing people. We need some timing help. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, have you ever gotten in that conversation where it's like really intense and you have 5 minutes to get out the door to get to work? Anybody been there? And then you're just like, I'm sorry, we can't have this. It so raises the heat. It creates intensity. It pressurizes the system. Suddenly you're trying to have a really serious conversation. You're like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to be late. I'm sorry. Well, you just don't want to listen to me. Like, yes, I do. I just can't. Timing. Sometimes you're unloading and dumping everything just like 20 minutes before you go to bed. And some of you are like, Greg, are you really going to go there? Yes, I am. Because it's true. Some of us have gotten into a habit where we got to unload on somebody in order to sleep well, and the other person can't sleep. So back it up like an hour before. Pick a good time. Ask the question, is this a good time? Say, this is not a good time for me right now. Emotionally or whatever, I want to pick a time, and then pick a time. Choose a time, but make sure it's a time that you can do this, because timing is critical. It will throw off all the communication. I don't care how close you get, how well you use your tone, any of that stuff. If you don't have time, you've pressurized the entire communication process. This is not going to work. They can't hear you. You want them to listen. This isn't a fight. You're not trying to win. This is a communication. You're trying to hear each other. Now, this applies in work, right? You want to hear from your boss? You want to talk to your boss? Hey, boss, is this a good time? No, I'm super busy. Can I get a time on your calendar? Because I really have something serious I need to talk about. And let him stress out about it. But, the point is that we engage with these. Now, one final thing. Say you're in the middle of it. You set all this up. You got the right timing. You got everything else. And suddenly you notice you're not listening. They're not listening. There's some intensity because emotions have risen up, because something was said that got distracted. Maybe you're not even on the topic anymore. You're off somewhere else. You have every right to do what we call the pause. You can hit pause on the conversation. Now, here's the problem. How many of you in this room are like, with a show of hands, you are like, we got to finish this and we finish it now. If we start the conversation, we got to finish the conversation. We can't just wait. Like, this cannot, okay, good. Some of you guys are like, this is a now kind of situation. How many of you are like, I'm never going to have this conversation? If there's a rug, I would sweep it under. Let's do that. Anybody want to do it? Come on now. You're like, I don't really want to, I'll tell you later, Greg. Thanks, guys. You're the ones who, like, when you were told to clean your room, you like, shoved it all under the bed. It's clean. That's not healthy either. Neither of these are necessarily healthy. If you're on a now situation, you're going to have timing problems. If you are on I don't ever want to talk about this, you are going to have pausing problems, meaning you're just going to avoid. So here's how you do this. When you head off a pause, you say, hey, it's getting intense. I'm a little lost. I need a minute to cool off myself. Can we pause this? I'm going to take about 10 minutes to go for a walk. And in 10 minutes, we'll come back. You need to set a time limit. You need to set when you're coming back, and you need to stick to it. And if you don't, they have the right to call you out. And you're allowed to do this when you feel the temperature rising on either side, when there's confusion, so that you can get back, and you want to get back to listening, because otherwise you're going to land in the flesh. You're going to be fighting each other. It's going to turn from, hey, we were all together on this, to, oh yeah? Because the intensity. You want to back out, reset, ask yourself, am I trying to build or break? Take a breath, count to 3, go for a walk, come back. Okay, I'm ready. Well, let's re-engage this. Does that make sense? What's our goal? To be heard. You want to listen. You want to listen before you speak. You want to take it in. So now if you set up for listening, you're considering the other first. You're getting it set out. Now, how do you listen is a completely different subject. And that's what we're going to touch on now. The how-to is cool because Jesus taught us this, and he was a kid when he did it. This is how smart Jesus is compared to me. And he's like, he disappears on his parents, which he's 12. I guess he has the right to do that, and he's Jesus. So talk about panic attack. 3 days, they can't find Jesus. Kids don't do this unless you're the son of God, right? So it's like Jesus is found in the temple sitting among the teachers. His parents are like, where have you been? They're like finding him, and it's so freaked out, glad he's not dead from wild animals or whatever. And they find him sitting there listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers, except his parents, who were ticked that he was gone for 3 days. Look at how Jesus teaches us about listening. He's sitting there, he's looking at them, he's set up an environment, he's there in the place, and he's listening by what? Asking them questions. See, listening is intended to bring clarity, and it brings clarity through questions. Listening brings about clarity when we ask clarifying questions, and you're allowed to ask questions. You need to ask clarifying questions, or you aren't going to be able to listen. In fact, listening like this, asking questions, slows you down from the quick talk. Notice what it says, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. So if you're answering questions, if you're just speaking before you know what's going on, before you have understanding, before you know what the question is, you're messing up the whole conversation. I mean, how many of us have gotten into the one where you've been engaged with them and you're trying to solve it and you're like working with them, you're like, oh, you could do this. And maybe it's your wife, she just looks at you like, I don't need you to solve this. I just need a hug. Anybody been there? It would have been so much faster if you just asked at the beginning, hey, I got a question. Is this a hug conversation or a problem-solving conversation? Do you need me to come with you on something or do you need me to fix something? That simple question helps set you up for listening in such a different way. And so you have this opportunity here to realize like, okay, I'm going to listen. I want to lean in. I want to understand. I want to be in the flesh, not me against them. It's a us together mentality. So, okay, what's happening here? What do I need to know? What do I need to hear? And so it slows you down. Now, you'll know you've stopped listening in a couple of cases. Number one, when you hit that trigger word and you're off to races, your mind is thinking about something else. Like they mentioned something that maybe is from your past that's really sensitive and it's just caused you to not focus. When you get emotional and suddenly you're feeling the emotions and you're hearing everything personal. You've moved into the flesh, you need to pause, you need to step back out, but this causes you not to listen. Maybe you're in a bad situation, like for me, BJ's. Don't ask me for a conversation at BJ's. My ADD, I'm like, oh, look, screens everywhere. What'd you say? So Zoom calls are ridiculous because it's a screen. And you're just like, that guy's picking his nose. What the heck? It's like, wait, what? What'd you say? It's like you have to stay focused. I have to use tools sometimes. I have to use like a pen and a paper to really listen well when I really want to listen well. Even with Teresa, sometimes it's weird. I'll be like, hold on, I'm having an ADD day, and I'll pull out a pen and paper because I want to follow through. Like, be serious about it. Listen before you speak. Because if one gives an answer before he hears, it's your folly, it's your shame. So, realize then questions are your tool. And smart people ask, or smart listeners ask questions. And, this comes from the Proverbs. Talking about wise people. Wisdom is out in the streets shouting and says, yes, if you call out for insight, raise your voice for understanding. If you seek it like silver and search for it as hidden treasures, you look for wisdom like this, you'll find it. Notice what it says. It calls out for insight. How do you call out for insight? Teacher, I got a question. I need some insight. I'm not sure. You raise your hand. You ask a question. Questions are good. Ask the questions. Raise your voice up for understanding. Otherwise, you're making assumptions. The assumption is going to destroy you because you're going to get it wrong. You're not God. The only way you can hear someone's heart and know where they're coming from is asking questions. And I'm not talking about binary questions. A bad question would be like, a bad clarifying question is, oh, so you're mad at me, huh? That is not a clarifying question. That is a veiled accusation. And it gives you a binary yes, no. No, you say, hey, this tone feels like you're angry. What's going on inside? Can you share with me a little bit more? Are you wanting to hurt me? Because I know you don't want to. We're trying to do this, but that felt a little harsh. Can you say it again for me? Like, it's clarifying. You're trying to open the door up for them to clarify what they're saying. You're going to ask, is this a good time? You're going to ask, hey, what does that word really mean? Because I'm not sure we're using it the same. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm kind of going slow. Can you rephrase that for me in another way? Because I'm not hearing it the same way you're saying it. You know, I disagree, but I don't know why I disagree yet. Can we work through this again? Because I'm still a little confused. Like, these are just requests to be understood and to understand. And they are always okay. Let me say it again. They are always okay. Some of you have stopped asking questions in your relationships because you were shut down for asking clarifying questions. You started asking clarifying questions, you started getting into it, and they just got more and more agitated. Ugh, well, come on, you know what I'm saying. We've talked about this before. Like, why do I have to bring this up again? I already said it. You heard what I said. I said these words. I mean these words. And you've just stopped because you can't get anywhere. If you are doing that, as a pastor, your pastor, let me say, stop it. Stop. it's not helping. It doesn't enable you to be heard. You're like, where'd you get that from? From your wedding. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter. I'm just kidding, not your wedding. If you've ever read this chapter, it's about love. And it's about the Christian heart of love. It was probably spoken at your wedding, maybe not. But here's the bottom line. It says, love is patient and kind. Yes, it is annoying to be asked a lot of questions. It is super annoying to have somebody keep clarifying and keep trying to figure it out and keep trying to grind on it. And you keep having to repeat yourself or try a different angle. But love is patient. When you're in the spiritual zone of all of us trying to work out peace together, you are going to be long suffering with each other. It means you're going to wait a long time before you finally have to go like, apparently I just don't get it. And look, the long suffering portion is the reason we keep asking questions. We keep working with each other and we're kind in it. We're not, what are you, stupid? You don't understand what that's not kind. And so you be patient, you try a different angle, you try a different thing, and guess what? You know how many times Tress and I'll be in these conversations and she'll be asking me to clarify something and I'm trying to, and she's like, well, do you mean this? And I'm like, no. And I was just kind of talking there. She's like, what do you mean this? And I have to just go, you know what? I don't know. I don't think I thought about this enough. I had to say that like last week. And back out and go like, I think I just got into this and I shouldn't have. Does it have a little bit of humility to realize sometimes we get into conversations we're really not prepared for. We didn't set up for listening. We didn't think through what we were really going to say. We were just emotional when we were ready to go. We were in the flesh. And so you back out and you just go, I'm dumb. I don't know what I'm really talking about here. Let me try harder so I can help you have an understanding of what I'm saying, because I want you to hear me. And so when we engage in this way, love is patient. It's willing to back up. It's willing to apologize. Like, I'm sorry. I know I'm asking you to do this again. Can we go back over that? Well, I'm still not clear here. It enables you to engage in this way. You know, what it doesn't do is it doesn't insist on its own way. Well, you know what? These are the words that I said. Figure it out. Go get a dictionary and see what I mean. That's not love. Love does not insist on its own way. It flexes, it moves, it tries to communicate, it tries to be heard, it tries to be known. It doesn't get irritable. And this is so annoying. I can't believe you're asking me this again. Come on, what are we going to, like, it's not resentful or keeps a record of wrongs. We've already had this conversation 100 times. This is not conducive to communication. And what you have to be willing to do is step into it, no matter if you've had it 100 times, and come to knowledge of each other, asking clarifying questions, leaning in to understand one another, leaning in to ask these things. You don't get to just shut them down because you're just tired of it. It's called being a jerk, not a Christian. And some of us, we got to work hard. Some of us, they're not trying to be irritating. They just want to know you. Remember, you got to go like, hey, I'm not in the flesh here trying to fight you. I want to understand. Teenagers, your parents aren't trying to drive you crazy with their questions. They're trying to get to know you. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want to be known? It's a lot easier in decision-making when you're known. You're able to become an adult when they get to know you and see the differences and why you think what you think and why you think what you think. And then you can actually have an argument and a disagreement and still love each other. The beauty of this being patient and kind and being listeners is we learn about one another. We're capable of seeking peace with one another, and then knowledge grows. See, how does knowledge grow? Well, once you've asked the questions, now you move into the good listening of verification. Good listeners verify and get more. They verify what they're hearing. They verify what's come to them. And what I mean by that is really what you find at like a fast food restaurant, right? You make your order, they repeat the order back. Well, they're not trying to insult you. They're like, what, did I not get my order correct to you? And you'd be surprised how many people do that. My kids work at Chick-fil-A and they get all kinds of weird stuff. But anyway, when they're doing that, they're verifying that they heard you right. They're showing you that they heard and they know. The same thing is true for us. Notice what the scriptures in Proverbs chapter 1 says. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. How do the wise hear and increase in learning? How do you know if they increased in learning? They repeat it back. You know, teachers weren't trying to torture you. You all know that, right? With tests and all kinds of little things you got to do for homework. They're trying to see that you listened and learned. That's all the tests and things are for. They're literally for a verification that you're there, you're with them, you're following along, you're getting the information. They've taught you and you grasped it. That's what this was all about. It's a communication method of verification. When you're in communication, you want them to verify what you're hearing. So I go, okay, so I might get this wrong. And so I stay humble about it. I might have this wrong, but this is what I hear you saying. Is that about right? So when you verify, here's what you do. Number one, use your own words. Oh, by the way, you don't do what business people tell you to do. Listening is not, I hear you. I follow what you're saying. I hear you. I understand. Or no, prove it. Say it back with your own words. This whole idea of like, I hear what you're saying is not listening. It's a cop-out to try to claim that you're listening. You need to actually speak back what they say. And by the way, saying exactly the words that they said back is not listening. That's cheating. A parrot can do that. It's literally called parroting. You can parrot back what somebody says to you, but it doesn't mean that you've heard them. Why you put it in your own terms? Because you want to show you've taken what they've said, you've understood it, and you can give it back from your own heart. When that happens, it's like you see them and you're like, you get me, you complete me. It's a beautiful moment. It is beautiful because you feel known. They know you. And I'm being a little silly about it, but the point is that it's powerful. When you know that you've communicated and you're on the same page, now you really get it. You can take the next step. You can make a resolution. You can begin to engage. Conflict becomes something that pulls you together. When you encourage, it goes into the heart. When you actually stand up and you have to make a challenge, it will actually transform because you know you are being heard. But without verification, you don't know it. And so you repeat back in words, your own words, to the person what you heard in the tone that they gave it to you. Please, if you can, in the tone they gave it to you. Because if you don't use the tone they gave it to you, you might have understood, but you may use it wrongly. You can be in the flesh and understand people. Oh, so you're saying you're really embarrassed about, you can do it this way. Oh, you're saying that you're really embarrassed about what happened when your boss told you that at work. Oh, that's hard. Or you can say, you're really embarrassed about what your boss told you at work? Well, yeah, you heard me, jerk. Because now I'm telling you that's dumb. I heard what you said, and I disagree. That's not what aiming is at listening. That's speaking. Until you've understood where they're at and you're able to deliver it back so that they know that you've heard, now you can talk about what your feelings are about it or whatever. I would caution against that kind of attitude, but the whole point is that you want to verify. When you do this, why do we do this? Why all this work? Why all this for a communication? Yes, and it gets easier and easier and easier as you practice this. But the reason you do it is because if you will draw out the deepest parts of people's lives and you will be known. Proverbs 25 says this, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Imagine with me, you have a very, very deep well, and you walk up with only a few feet of rope and a bucket, and you toss it down, you're thinking it's going to be easy, and you're like, oh, I don't got nothing. You got to have the big rope. You got to be ready with a long time of listening. You got to dump it in there, and it's going to take you a while putting it down there, and then you're going to have to pull, and 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 pull. It's hard work to draw out the heart considerations of the one that you love. It's hard work to bring about peace. It's hard work not to be the commenter before you've listened. And so we come as those who are ready to take out the deep water, draw out the understanding of our teenager's heart, of our children's hearts, of our spouse's heart, to draw out the understanding of our coworkers. We want to be these kinds of people, so we listen well and we verify. And it's not easy. It's hard work, but it's good work. And so let me give you two more things that'll help you in this good work so you can draw it out. These two things help the draw out process. Number one, you guys thought I forgot what I was going to say, huh? No, it's get really comfortable with silence. When you get really comfortable with silence, you give the other person a chance to process. You give yourself the chance to process. If you are uncomfortable with silence, you will fill it with all kinds of words that you regret. When in the process of communication and listening, let there be some breath. Let there be silence for a little bit. It's a beautiful gift to give, is the ability to be patient and be able to sit in some silence. Second one is that you have got to be able to pace your conversation. You are in a fast-paced society. You're in a society that expects you to text the second you get a text, to comment the second you see something online, to be right there in and on it. And this trains you that you need to have something to say right when somebody says something. Slow your roll. Pace your conversation. Some of you are faster at analyzing, look, my wife, she is like a supercomputer at processing speed when it comes to conversations. I'm like a TI-87. Like this is like way down here on like the lower end of the beginning. I'm like slow processor, way too much information, does not compute constantly. And she is just boom, 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 boom. And so you can only go as fast as the slowest processor in the room. You guys got that? If you're gonna have a communication, you only get to go as fast as the slowest processor in the room. Give yourself enough time, you'll process faster together because you'll know each other. But the bottom line is, if you're jamming and you're unloading like, and you're just this and 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 this, and ladies, there's this concept called spider webbing that I've learned about, and it's not a bad thing, it's just what your brains do. And so you have an issue that you have here, but that issue is also attached to this deep early childhood trauma that's also attached over here to what Aunt Edie said about that food that you ate the other day and what that meant in this classroom for your children and how that related to the way that person was driving and the person walking down the aisle. And so it's like all this stuff, and you're bringing it all out because it all makes sense. And us guys were like, what planet am I on? Where are we? And why pacing is critical is it helps you slow down, focus, hit one issue at a time. When it's resolved and you know it's verified, then move to the next issue. This is hard, it's practice, it's discipline, but you want to draw out the deep meanings. You want to draw out an understanding. Don't hammer every single issue. You don't have time for that. Slow it down, focus, one issue, then the next. If you will pace your communication, if you'll pace your conversation, it will enable you to have better conversations. Listen. Put the other person first. Consider them as more important than yourself. Set them up for great communication. Set them up for great listening, and then listen by asking questions, verifying what you're hearing, and in the end, when you do that, you'll begin to draw each other out, and communication gets faster and faster as your dictionaries get closer together, as your thought life gets closer together, as these things start to merge, and you start to be known. This doesn't just happen with children or spouses. It happens with friendships. It happens with everyone that you can engage with enough time, but especially in your families. Watch your words. Handle them with care. What you will discover is that a deep well of understanding is coming your way. The church is an opportunity to train a world that is devoid of listening in the art of listening. And what I hope is that we can take these principles that are full through the scriptures, apply them to our lives, our friendships, and even online, and watch as God begins to move, at least in the church's heart, back to a people who listen well. Those who listen well gain great understanding. And that's what we need in our relationships and our communication. Amen, church? Let me pray over you. Lord Jesus, I just lift up to you our church, your church. And I ask that you would indeed enable us to be a people who listen well, who take in the understanding and aren't prepared to just speak, but that we're actually listening, asking questions. God, that we're a people who want to know one another, who want to understand each other. God, that we'd be a people of wisdom. And so would you open our ears? Would you stop up our mouths? Would you allow us to begin to be a people who know one another? And in that, would you enable us, just enable us to be a people comfortable in silence, pacing ourselves correctly, willing to submit so that they can be heard. God, just allow us to be a people ready to speak after we've listened. And we ask you to aid us in this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Well, we have a team that's ready to listen to your prayer requests and lift it up to the God who listens. So if you have prayer during this song, feel free, come over and meet them. They would love to pray with you. Otherwise, let's sing to the Lord God who listens